remind you to record. And I will start off with a roll call. I'm Dan Keller, the Chair Pro Tem, and I'm here.
Gillian Bedine, Select Board member, here.
And we did receive word from Lori that she won't be able to make it tonight. She's traveling, but we'll hold any seriously consequential decisions until she gets back. And in the meantime, just proceed with the business at hand. So the first item on the agenda is announcements. And I have here on my copy of the agenda that we have an annual dog notice.
Yes,
and expand on that.
yeah, I might have put this in the wrong part of the agenda because it looks like, unlike the annual street notice, parking notice, this one actually you all need to actually vote on every year and sign off on. So the legal notice is in your basket there, Select Board, as well as in the folder for the documents tonight, and it's the same as you've done in the past. It's for January 1 through January 31, restraining dogs from running at large.
Okey doke, I see that. And
Glenn, if I may ask a question, you just mentioned the parking notice, and that's something that I had on my notes to ask about. We've had just people parking around the common and getting in the way of plows and things. I'm just wondering if that is a notice that gets made every year, or is that just a standing town bylaw that there's no parking on the streets?
It's a standing town bylaw that we post notices about every year, and I will be posting it on Friday. I haven't gotten to posting it yet.
Thank you.
but I do believe we can go ahead and vote on the dog notice and sign that and get it out of the way. So I move that we approve this legal dog notice.
I second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any further discussion on the legal notice warning that dogs are not allowed to run free? In that case, we can vote on it. All those in favor? I guess we said that.
We said that.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. So that's passed, and I'll sign it. You can sign it, and that'll be off to the town clerk. Any public comment? Item number 3 on our agenda.
Dan?
Yeah. I'd like to, seeing that this is the last meeting of the year, I wanted to sing the praises of Phil Delory, the Wendell Highway Commission, and Davenport Construction Company, who built the Kenfield Road Bridge. You might not even know about some of the history, Dan and Gillian. I shared a little with Glenn this afternoon when we met, but last spring when we were at the Concom meeting, myself and Shay Cooper, we learned about the design of the bridge. And let's just say the short of the long of it was that we felt that there was too much steel, too much concrete, too much asphalt, and that the bridge was too urban and not in keeping with the lovely wooded setting over Whetstone Brook there. So we asked to have a meeting with Phil and the Highway Commission, and we shared our concerns, and we made some suggestions about the design of the bridge that might be more appropriate in that setting and fit in. And they listened. We had a little presentation, and we made some points about why we would hope that they would consider a change in design. And then Phil went on to have another meeting with the engineer, and there were several other individuals that had concerns and wanted to see a redesign of the bridge. And that was made possible. There was a commitment at that meeting that there would be changes. And then all the way through the process, Phil followed through. We even had a little hiccup this fall, but he worked closely with Davenport to make sure that all went well. And now we have a bridge with a wooden deck, a wooden sides, kind of the burnished guardrails. It fits in much better in the scenic road and the scenic setting there. I saw Shay today at the site, and that she's grateful. Her and her family, they live in that beautiful little Eden down there along Whetstone Brook. So they're pleased. She couldn't say enough about Davenport's craftsmanship. So I just wanted to say thank you. And thank you to Phil, and thank you to the commission, and thanks to Davenport for their efforts. And I would say that that is as nice as any state park bridge or a national park bridge in a rural setting. And we were able to do that while meeting the Massachusetts stream crossing standards and the Mass Highway standards. And I'm grateful that through a little effort on everyone's part, that we've got a bridge to be proud of, and that it'll probably be there for the next 100 years. And I think it'll age beautifully there. It's obviously, Shay said it's a little shock to her still sometimes when she looks out. It's much more significant than the old bridge that was there, but we knew that old bridge wasn't going to be able to, a facsimile of that bridge wasn't going to be able to be created, nor funded, nor would meet the stream crossing standards. So Phil, I just want to say A+ on all your efforts, and thanks so much. And good things do happen a lot here in Wendell, and I just wanted to acknowledge that publicly tonight.
Well,
Thank you, Dan. Very well said.
and on behalf of the commission and everybody else involved, and it was a nice experience. We got good input. Nice when things can work out agreeably, and it did end up being a much nicer product. So thanks to you too. You put the effort out, and we worked together, got a nice job there.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, Phil.
Good of you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Dan. And just so all members of the public know, we now are welcoming a new a visitor to our meeting. Aaron Saunders is here. Thank you very much for coming.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
Is it officially representative-elect?
Representative-elect until about 11 a.m. on January 4th. And then we
11
can drop the elect.
Not too far away.
No,
Yeah.
it's coming up quick.
Good. Well, thanks for coming ahead of schedule.
My pleasure.
As you can see, we're operating partly by Zoom here, so it's a little awkward at times, and people will jump in and speak on top of each other occasionally, but this is the structure that we're working under for the time being. We are now just finishing up public comments that Dan Leahy made, thanking Highway Department for its reconstruction of Kentfield Road Bridge, which is a long project. We're now on item 4, which is select board updates and comments. And I, for the moment, don't have any. Gillian, do you?
I was just going to update. I met with the finance committee on Monday evening.
Right.
And we just sort of touched base on a lot of different things and wanting to strengthen our connection between the finance committee and the select board. And we talked about the money managers meeting, and they're going to reach out to Carolyn and work with her to arrange a time to make sure that they can make that meeting. We also discussed the lack of having a financial coordinator right now, and that would help our communication between the two groups. So sort of a combo effort to try to, they really are asking for our help trying to find someone.
Yeah.
As well as an additional FinCom member. So in the newsletter that we have coming out in January, I will add that to the list of spots to try to fill if people are interested in helping the town out.
Good.
We also discussed, as part of the money managers meeting, the ARPA funds, expenditures, plans, et cetera. Looking at what we have remaining and the different asks and how we want to spend that. I let them know that Aaron Saunders was joining us tonight. And we briefly discussed the highway department wages increase request, just wanting to make sure they were aware of that. Discuss the fire chief retirement and the impact on the budget that might have. And in addition, the discussion around the additional full-time police officer position with Leverett. And that would be something we would need to be aware of. And I also discussed with them about having a brief summary from the FinCom to the select board, which they sent the first one today, this afternoon, about their meetings, sort of things on their radar and what they're working on.
Great.
And so I think that will help keep us a little better connected. And they're expecting in the beginning of the year to begin looking at the budget for here.
Right. Now, on the increased wages for the highway department, did they recommend approving these increased wages? FinCom?
They asked some questions. They felt like they didn't quite have enough information to really give an opinion. But the update that they sent today with some questions, Phil actually responded to by email, but just about wanting to know if this is also for the next budget year, and asking about benefits and not just wages, sort of the cost of,
Right.
and does the staff have certifications or licenses and or competencies that can factor into the analysis?
Hmm.
So they asked some questions, but didn't give an opinion.
Okay. And Phil, I think you're still with us.
I am.
Do,
And I'll
do we need to act on this sooner rather than later?
Well, it is on your agenda for a little bit later in the evening. I'm happy to jump around if you like. I did respond to the FinCom inquiries, and they're very reasonable and understandable that they have questions. This is coming up quicker than we do these types of things, but we felt like it was a kind of a critical issue to keep us on even keel with our staffing for the highway and for maintenance for the winter, that kind of thing. So do you want to continue the conversation now, Dan, or do you want to wait till later?
Oh, I guess maybe we'll wait till later,
Okay,
since it's on the agenda for later.
that way you can keep me on for the whole meeting.
Well, is that a threat?
No, I'm usually listening anyway.
Well, actually, since you're here, Phil, and we're already on the subject, and there's no time listed on our agenda for this subject, why don't we just talk about it now?
Okay.
How would you like us to actually approve certain increases tonight?
I would, and I'll discuss what those are about. We have learned recently, and there's quite a lot of energy in the community. I mean, the larger community, that the towns are. It's not a bidding war, but people are very active in recruiting highway crews, highway drivers, snow plowers. I don't know if you saw down in Leverett last year, they had one of those big electronic signs right on the side of the highway, and it sat there for a month. And the specific reason was they're trying to hire people to work for the highway crew. We've had one of our drivers told me last week that he's being recruited by another town. And we're understanding, and we've checked around, we know at least 2 towns are up at the $25 level for salaries, $25 an hour. And I think my initial reaction was, I don't want to get into a bidding war. I don't want to react to individuals just off the sidewalk, so to speak, making requests for more salary. But this is a pretty critical issue for us, for the town, for maintaining our roads. Somebody there?
Someone just joined the meeting, but they've gone on mute now. Continue.
Okay. So we looked at it pretty hard. The $25 an hour is an issue. I know that Leverett pays their drivers that rate. We know that Salem has made conversation with one of our drivers at that rate, that in general, because these people are licensed, it's an arduous job, especially in the wintertime. You know, the guys are out there for many, many hours at a time, and we have a really good crew right now. And I think we're really anxious, or doing what we can, as long as, you know, as the town agrees, we're doing what we can to make sure that they're feeling appreciated and that they're well taken care of. So one of our drivers right now is at a rate of $23.50 approximately, because he was deemed the assistant highway supervisor. He's agreed that if we do this changeover, that we'll drop that actual designation. So his total increase would be about $1.50 an hour. The newest employee that we have, the driver, he's at 21. I'm looking at my sheet here, 21.34. So he's quite a bit down from what is becoming more of a standard rate in the area. So we are asking the board, in consideration of us not being up to speed with what the rates are in the area, and I guess really to support the idea, or support the individuals, that we have a really good crew and want to do what we can to keep them. That we're asking that the board approve. And oh, and by the way, we have this money in our budget because we have been down with our staffing over the summer. We've had some ebbs and flows with staffing, and things are back up to normal. So we have the money in our budget. We're talking about half the year's cost for this increase, which would be in the area of, I believe it was $5,700 approximately it'll come out of the highway budget. And then we would be talking to the FinCom about changing our budget around so that this continues on after the end of the fiscal year. So the total cost will come out of the budget, the highway budget for this year, $5,700. It will just be for actually two individuals to raise them up, one from $21.50 or $21.34 to $25 an hour, and the other one from $23.34 up to $25 an hour. So that is the request. If the board would approve it, we have the ability to pay for it, and we will be talking with you and or the FinCom about continuing this increased rate for the drivers.
Okay, thank you. In that case, I will move that we approve a wage increase for these two employees to $25.
Sorry to interrupt, Dan. I think what we need is a motion on the full revised hourly rate schedule, because we also needed you all to vote on the rate schedule that includes the changes that Joe Cuneo had brought forward last time. There was kind of informal approval of that, but Carolyn really needs the full revised hourly rate schedule to be approved, and that includes both the ones from Phil and from Joe.
Okay, well, we can do that. That means raising the deputy chief to $22.11 for the fire department, and the fire department officer raised to $21.11, and the firefighter hourly raised to $18.73, which looks like the same figure it was last time, but that has been revised, and the firefighter probationary to $16.50. Does that sound right?
Yes, the fire department's, Joe changed the names of the different categories. So, but those for the categories that you approved a couple meetings, or the last meeting, I guess it was.
I'm not on here.
These are the rates that Joe has recommended.
And
Ones that I just read off.
Yes,
Carolyn?
yes.
And
Okay, is that
Dan,
motion clear?
if I could add, Dan, we didn't put a date on it, and I'm going to suggest that we make that raise effective on the December 31st date, which is the beginning of a new pay period.
Okay, I'll revise my motion without objection to reflect that date effective December 31st.
Yes, thank you.
I'll second.
Dan, I'll need you to repeat that because the motion was originally just for the two drivers and now they're for the entire.
Right.
And you could say to approve the hourly wage sheet as presented. That includes all of those details.
Oh, thank you. Hourly wage sheet. There you go. Appreciate it.
Do you have that, Cynthia?
Yes.
Okay. Those were the numbers that I read off, the ones that are in red. Make sense, Cynthia?
Yes, absolutely. I got it.
Thanks. And we do have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that motion carries. Thank you, Phil.
Well, I want to thank you and everybody who's had part in this conversation because it's not as simple or light matter to, talk about spending more money on the town's behalf like this. And I know it's unusual, so thank you for your support.
Thanks. Good.
Probably.
So
Thank you. And I don't,
I think the next item on our agenda is select board meeting and warrant schedule review.
Well, Dan, I was going to
Warrant.
ask, we were still on select board updates and comments. I was wondering if you have an update from the, are you on the hiring committee for the new police position?
Gillian
I
is.
am.
Oh,
I know they've offered the position. I don't know if it's public information yet. We interviewed. I am losing track of how long ago it was, last week. And final interviews happened, I believe, on Monday of this week. And so we're waiting to hear from Chief Minkler.
great. Thank you.
It was a great process. It worked out really well.
Great. The first time the towns have hired together, right, or gone through this process together.
It went very well.
Nice.
I apologize for interrupting. I'm in the middle of a solstice celebration, but I wanted to be part of the meeting in terms of regarding tree work and everything else. And Glenn sent me the message. This is Cliff, by the way. I apologize. But
Yeah,
wondering
Cliff,
if there's any way we could do whatever needs to be done now, or did I miss that?
Oh,
Or,
sorry, we can't do that, Cliff.
okay.
We've got some agenda items that are coming up that have time slots, so we'll have to
Beautiful.
wait for that one.
What is my time slot? I thought I
We
wasn't-
certainly hope we can see you for that.
There isn't a time slot for the tree related ones, but we have.
No, but there is a time slot for
No, I'm
Mr.
just giving-
Saunders, who is
yeah, I'm
here, and we're
giving-
going to be speaking with him in just a few minutes, so I don't want to get started on the tree subject
course.
right away.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
thank
Are we done with section 4, Glenn?
Yes. Yep.
Section 5 is select board meeting and warrant schedule review. We have a warrant here on the table, which I've signed. It's ready to be inspected by the select board. We have our next meeting scheduled for January 4th. And there will also be a warrant on that date.
We're matching up again, which is good.
And
Right.
I'll get Dan a draft agenda for the January 4th meeting. Since I'll be away all next week, it will have to be posted by Friday because of the holiday after New Year's Day. So I'll email the select board about that.
Okay, I will post it. Anything further on the warrant and schedule review? We have a few minutes. Glenn, do you want to give a town coordinator report?
I actually don't have too much to report, but I'd be happy to take any questions if anyone has them. Been kind of quiet, catching up on some things and trucking along.
And Phil, project coordinator?
Yes, it's quiet time, as Glenn mentioned. We do have RFPs going out very soon for the consultants to manage the monitoring wells for the landfill capping. We also have a survey that I've requested from Alf Berry, who surveyed the property next door to our landfill area. So that's going to be hopefully a relatively minor project for him, because like I say, he's already got 2 of the boundary lines surveyed. We're looking for a tree cutter because of all those trees that have to be removed, and I've got a few leads on that. So that project's going forward. It's just going to take a while, and that's going to be a discussion that's going to be happening all through the next 2 years, probably by the time we get this all finished up and capped and grass growing and all that. But that's where it's heading. Reshaping of the whole capping, and then monitoring wells and grass growing. Also, there was a discussion on your board, I think last week, or it was in the emails. You did sign Laura, you all signed the contract with FERCog for their assistance with procurement and contracting for the landfill project. However, we have another project, which is the drawing a blank here. It is the roof project at the town highway barn. And there was a contract from FERCog that went through, and I know that Lori we exchanged an email. So if I don't know if Glenn has a copy of it there, if one of the select board or both the select board members could sign it, that would be helpful. If not, it's a very usual circumstance with FERCog that I sign as an authorized signatory for the town. So I don't know, Glenn, do you have a copy of that, the contract from FERCog?
I mean, I could find it, but I think the last thing was I thought that you were going to be signing it because you have historically signed things like that, but
That's fine with me, but I'm
I don't
glad that
have
we're
ready
meeting
for
with
them
the
to-
select board. As long as the select board's okay with me signing it, I'll go ahead and sign. This is a contract for it's about $7,000. I don't know if I have it in front of me. And this is for, again, procurement and for contract management services from the FERCog.
Were you okay with letting Phil go ahead and sign that, Elaine?
I am.
So am I.
Well, thank you very much. I will take care of that. Only other minor detail is the police station has come to a great stop. It's finished, and they're just they're not getting moved in. We just so you know, we still have to we install the new heaters, and those are, and from what I understand from the plumbing contractor, that those are perhaps by the end of the year we'll have those. Those are one of those items that were back ordered forever. It's taken us almost a year to get them. But the police station's pretty well done. It's just those couple little details, but they have not used it. So I didn't know if that's of any interest to you folks, if it makes any difference with the.
Yeah, we'll check into it.
Okay.
Are you saying they have not used it?
There's not a piece of furniture or anything in the building. It just, they were gonna outfit it with all their desks and all that, and phones and all that.
Have they been notified that it's all set for them moving?
Oh,
in?
yeah.
Yeah,
Just-
I heard lots of excitement about it when I was at the police station in Leverett. Lieutenant
okay,
was, yeah, Lieutenant was like, he thought that would be a great satellite office for him.
Well, that's good. So I'm happy if they're happy, and if you're happy, then there's no issue. But I just wanted to let you know that it's not being used yet. We put a lot
Okay.
of work in for the year. Yeah, okay. I'm
We'll
all
check it
set.
out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
Okay.
Okey doke. I think we, at 7:30 exactly.
Who knows?
So thank you very much again, Aaron, for coming to our meeting. Really appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure. And this is the first select board meeting that I've attended in this capacity. So
Wow, very cool.
I'm happy to have the first in mind.
Oh,
Very nice. We're happy to have you here. can you give us just a little brief personal background, where you're from, where you live, and how you got interested in the job?
Sure. And actually, I get taken back. I served on the select board in Ludlow for about 7 years.
No
So
kidding.
signing warrants and grinding our way through tree hearings and dog hearings was that was our Monday night ritual there. But I think for folks who don't know, my name is Aaron Saunders. I am the representative elect for the 7th Camden District. It is a largely new district, amalgamation of pieces of several districts from the last redistricting effort. So in addition to Wendell, it includes New Salem, Petersham, Shutesbury, Pelham, Belchertown, and Ludlow. Prior to running for office, I part owner of Loophole Brewing. And I mentioned I'd served previously on the select board in Ludlow, where I was born and raised, and contemporaneously served as chief of staff to then state senator Gail Connors, who represented Ludlow and Belchertown. So
Oh, okay.
I've been afflicted with public service for quite some time, but I think that there's tremendous opportunity in the 7th Camden District to concerns and opportunities up and down the district, and make some connections that weren't previously there. My hope tonight is to do more listening than talking.
Sure.
Over the course of the campaign, I got to know the town a bit, and it's I know I'm probably supposed to say this in these meetings, but it is just one of my favorite places in the district, and I've gotten to know some great people along the way, and get to know some of the, again, challenges and opportunities, whether it's the Swift River School, addressing the water issue there, with the meeting house, the proposed clear cutting of the right of way. There's a lot of work to be done. Increasing the payments for pilot payments for state-owned land. There's no shortage of work ahead of us, but I think we have an incredibly strong team of Western Mass legislators who are similarly positioned and representing the interests of small and rural communities, and I just can't wait to get to work.
Great. Well, thanks for that. You right away hit two of the main subjects that I'm concerned about at the moment, which are payment in lieu of taxes, which I've been struggling with for over 40 years as a member of the FinCom here, and then on the select board. And we've made some progress, and then we've seen it go backwards. And so it's an issue that really is going to take some energy to maybe try to make some permanent solution to this problem, rather than having a fight every year and so forth.
Yeah, Rep. Natalie Blay, who represents Sunderland and West and a little bit of Greenfield, has been a real champion on this, and I've had a number of conversations in terms of how we can work together to not only increase the rate generally, but also find some equity so that communities in the eastern part of the state who might have commercial valuation 10 times of what may exist in Wendell and Salem are not shortchanged when it comes to that pot of money that's appropriated, and ultimately get to a spot where communities are being their taxes by the Commonwealth.
Right.
It's a basic assumption that we make of each other in a functioning democracy. The Commonwealth shouldn't be any separate.
Right.
So it's day one that'll be at the top of the list.
And the other major concern for me is the clear cutting on the right of way of the high tension line, which I believe starts in Ludlow.
Yeah, this touches just about every town in the district. I don't know if it has any of Petersham, but otherwise every community in the 7th Camden is affected. And Senator Joe Comerford, who of course represents Wendell, we together, along with a number of members of the delegation, have been in regular contact with the utility to first understand what the rationale is. I think my 10th grade trigonometry class would provided the
Trees don't fall that
Yeah.
far.
right. Yeah, I mean, if it's a 50-foot tree, then it can only fall 50 feet across.
Normally.
and really understanding not only, maybe it's a little tongue in cheek, the math of it, but really the role that our forest civilians play for so much of what we're depending on now, whether it's wildlife habitat, carbon sequestration. Now is not the time to be cavalier about clear cutting hundreds of acres of anything. So again, we'll be working on with that, and I know Representative Whips has been involved with that in her last couple of weeks of representation for Wendell, but it impacts her district as well as it's
I had a conversation with Whips and Comerford about it. They both seem to be working really hard. And one thing that Joe was working on was trying to get a response from the utility regarding the question, how many outages have there been?
Right.
Or how many injuries to the line have there been from falling trees? And this is a question we asked them, put to them very simply and bluntly months ago, and haven't heard a response yet. The other thing I just wanted to mention quickly is that I have a personal interest aside from the general interest of the town, which is it runs right across the corner of our farmland, and includes, those 50 feet include a native forest made up with native hardwood cherry trees, which we've been managing for over 50 years on the site. And those trees are magnificent, and they fall within that 50-foot margin. So this is a deeply emotional concern for many people, actually.
It really hits nail on the head. It reminds me of the sort of axiom, just because you can, you should.
Right.
And this is the idea of having a right of way if needed, but onus ought to be on the utility to prove that it needs to remove whatever trees it needs to remove. And if you have those 80-foot white pines and they're 10 feet off the, all right, that we want to make sure that the power isn't interrupted, but I mean, how tall those cherry trees get?
Well, they don't get as tall as the pine trees.
Yeah.
They don't fall over as easily.
Right. So if they're not going to pose a threat to the lines, then it's nearly impossible. I can't imagine a circumstance under which they could justify getting rid of those trees that don't pose a threat.
Good. Well, thanks for listening, and thanks for understanding that, and I appreciate your knowledge about it.
Absolutely.
Gillian, any thoughts from you at this point?
A couple of the things that came up when I was thinking about it was around some of the issues that we have as a small town that other small towns face, like replacing our fire chief. We've tackled replacing our or finding a new situation for our police chief. Situation that is going pretty well, but it's still a significant additional cost probably down the road for us to incur. Which, I mean, I think it's just a reality.
Right.
But the fire chief position is yet another one. And sort of if there was a better way of supporting small rural communities in addressing some of those issues. Because I know, we're dealing with it, New Salem's dealing with it because we share a fire chief. But just the support around small towns, making that happen. And, you touched on the PFAS issue with the school. I think we've found some ways to cover the beginning of those costs, but we know we have a lot more coming down the pipe, and they've applied for a grant, and hopefully that'll help with some of the cost of it. But it's a huge impact for the small schools.
Was the grant through the revolving fund?
I don't know. They just applied for it just within the last week or two.
So I had a very preliminary conversation with the folks at the state revolving fund for their drinking water programs. And one of the things, and again, it's caution talking about free money, because the moment it leaves your lips, it might as well be done. Part of the federal infrastructure bill put significant additional grant funds into the state drinking water revolving fund, which traditionally provides 0 interest or low interest loans, which is great, especially now. But at the end of the day, I think these two issues are similar in the sense that for small and rural communities, the costs take on a different impact on the bottom line. You know, if you are in a larger community, the cost of searching for a new fire chief, setting up an assessment center is probably a rounding error of just your fire budget, let alone your overall budget. When it becomes something that moves the needle on property tax rate or prevents providing a different service then it's that recognition. And I think we have again a good group out here, and I'm excited to lend my voice to it, to say that the basic fundamental considerations of it. And it's relatively short money for what we deal with, but I think if we can start thinking about providing support in terms of the floor, where $100,000 for communities out our way is incredible. $100,000 Boston, you can triple and not notice it.
Mhm.
And but thinking in terms of floors, and begun to talk about that idea with colleagues, and there's a lot of different applications for it, but I think it speaks to a lot of these issues that whether it's mandates that come down, especially on the education side, where if you don't have the capacity to begin with, building that capacity is more expensive in a small community than it is in a larger community, and then maintaining it is those types of new operational costs, so that the money does not grow even trees.
It's true. I think, often you see grants coming out that are, well, the priority to serve the gateway cities, so it might be for Springfield or Holyoke or, but it's Worcester, but can we have a tiny bit of that? A tiny bit of that, we can do a lot with.
And I think that there's a big part of the conversation is that the legislature in the last decade or so recognized some of these really significant needs that the gateway cities have. A lot of them that we rely on in smaller communities for employment, for healthcare, for all sorts of stuff. But it's time to widen the aperture and recognize that the need does not end at a minimum of 30,000 residents. The need transcends population, and oftentimes, and I guess we're kind of jumping around a bit, but especially with rural poverty, it's less visible if it's not in an urban setting.
Yeah.
If the supports aren't already there to proactively go out and look at it. I know there's people doing yeoman's work in addressing the challenges in small communities, but it can't get lost upon us to say we've checked the box as long as gateway cities are safe, because there's a great number of communities that sit around them that have as much, if not more, acute needs.
Yeah, so those were the things that sort of popped up
in
my mind to begin with.
It covers a lot of the major issues.
Well, again, I'm excited to get to work, right? And the other thing I want to say is that I hope this is the beginning of the conversation. I'm always available by email or text, and living in Belchertown is central to the district. So it's 35 minutes door to door, which is, convenient that I don't have to set out, it's not a day's trip to any edge of the Seventh Family, which I think is the second largest district by geography now. So
Is it?
I'm still working with DCR to see if I can get a boat from gate 2 up to gate.
It is sort of the Quadrant region that you're serving, right?
Yeah, as it's quicker over water that way. But I just want to extend that to the board, to the citizenry of Wendell, that if there are things that come up, reach out. We'll be hopefully announcing hiring of a legislative aide who is going to be primarily focused on constituent relations to help until we get the cloning technology to where it needs to be. We'll have that as a resource as well. And I think you touched on the relationship with Senator Comerford. She's an incredible partner.
Yeah.
We work very closely together. So, on issues that where may reach her or me, that exchange of information happens often.
Great.
Wonderful.
And do you have an office where people can visit you?
Not yet. That is, that's one of the sort of still percolating questions as to where we can find a spot, you know, both that is accessible. My preference, you know, notwithstanding where an office ends up, is to be in each community available for office hours.
Mhm.
You know, so either library, community center, town hall, perhaps looking to the board for guidance on when is this best for folks who live in town. I mean, it may be very convenient for me Tuesday at 11 a.m., but you know, as people work, if they have other obligations, you know, maybe it's a Thursday evening or a Monday evening, if the clerk is open, where you know can that same time. But and notwithstanding, we'll be setting up regular office hours in every community to be accessible, and then certainly if there's a thin silver lining to this pandemic, it's we're all familiar with Zoom now, so it certainly makes that accessibility a lot easier to accommodate, to have you know, as close to a face-to-face.
I think we have a fair number of people in Wendell that don't really enjoy using computers. And so I think the idea of a sort of rotating actual meeting with you, if we had some sort of regular schedule, maybe on a quarterly basis or something, but on a regular schedule where people would know that in advance that you're going to be here, we'd be happy to work with you on that.
Excellent.
And the library is a happening place. So I think it would be a wonderful spot.
Excellent.
Yeah, there's a nice big meeting room there, and
So Mindy Don, who had, well, up until January 4th, will represent the town of Pelham, does the same thing in Pelham. And it's really nice because it doesn't necessarily need to be folks who have some pressing concern.
right.
There could just be sort of general questions, or, you know, especially early on in the tenure, I did my best to meet everyone over the course of the campaign, but there's plenty of folks that haven't had a chance to meet, and you know, really making it accessible for anything that
How much time do you plan on spending actually in Boston chambers?
as much as is needed. It's interesting to, I don't know exactly how the new legislative rules are going to shake out, but generally the ebbs and the flows of the sessions, it is busy in the spring, early summer, then slow down in the late summer, pick up again in the fall. So if I'm in Boston a couple days a week, that's probably a lot. And do my best to be efficient with that time. Sort of driving back and forth, but also just being able to spend as much time in the district as I can. Some of the best ideas seldom come from inside the State House. It's what you get and hear and understand as opportunities and challenges from folks in the district, being able to bring them back. You got some good advice on it. It's easy to get taken. But spending every night in Boston, and there's a group of people still there, but you know, again, it's no one in Boston sent me. That was some of the good advice from the speaker this last week, where he had a chance to chat with the incoming freshman class, 22 of us, and really understood being there for the district, listening, being responsive.
No plans to go remote in Boston.
They may have remote participation for hearings, and this is actually something I would advocate for, not only for public health concerns that linger, but really for someone from Wendell to take the time to drive to Boston, pay the $40 to park, sit in a crowded, hot hearing room for your 3 minutes to testify.
Right.
That testimony is really important, but it's an arduous task if you don't live immediately around there. So the opportunity to participate remotely in hearings, I think, is a net benefit for Western Mass, and allowing you to live out this way, to weigh in with their thoughts and opinions on some of these issues. And there's going to be some really significant ones that impact us regionally. especially around energy and climate. So other than that, my sense is that we will have, we'll be going back to having formal sessions in person exclusively, maybe with some narrow exemptions for folks who are not well or cannot participate.
Okay, sounds good.
I did think of one other thing. Wendell has benefited recently in the past few years from the community compact grants with some of that regionalizing support, that we've needed to do. And I know listening to the current lieutenant governor speak, outgoing lieutenant governor, that was sort of something her department really got going. And I would be one who would advocate for that continuing. So I'll put that, if there's a chance for you to help advocate for that, I would.
Absolutely. And I think, Lieutenant Governor Polito really taking the lead, being the conduit for municipalities showed. And I hope that Governor Lee and Lieutenant Governor Driscoll continue the community compact program. I'd certainly support that appropriation. And it's so often, sometimes the government you feel like you have to reinvent the wheel. There are things that work, and we should invest in those things that work. There are some things that don't work, and that's the time to tweak and to change. But community compact grants, I will make a point of having that on the list so that we can continue with it and having those regionalization conversations more generally.
Yeah, it was something that worked for our smaller rural communities. There was room for us to access that.
I'm bringing my notebook tomorrow to Greenfield when they're done with it. And that will be, I know it'll be a learning experience. But on those questions of a unique district that touches 4 counties, there needs to be those entities to do some of those fundamental looking for grants, applying for grant compliance. And you spend as much money on compliance as we do on whatever grant ones come in. So anything I can do to be helpful there.
Yeah, thanks.
I will seeing everyone again soon.
Okay,
Please
great.
reach out if anything comes up.
All right, we will.
So take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care, Aaron. Thanks for coming.
Good to see everyone.
Thank you. I'm muted, but,
We can hear you.
I'll mute myself.
Okay.
Okay, where were we? Getting up towards the consent agenda, I believe. Sound right?
Yes, it
And,
looks like a pretty easy one.
It is pretty easy. We have approval of December 7th meeting notes, approval of Class 3 motor vehicle junk license at Scott's Garage, and used auto, which is actually a renewal because they're already there. And C is approval of letter of support for Irving's application for funding to complete a feasibility study on a proposed shared use path along the south side of the Millers River to connect Farley Irving Center and Wendell Depot. Approve the consent agenda as written.
I will second.
Any further discussion?
Yes, I have a minor typo in the December 7th minutes. Just a number 1 in the document section that should be there. I told you it's minor. Otherwise, it's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll notice that, we'll note that correction in the minutes for December 7th.
I do have one question. Do we need to sign the letter of support?
We probably should.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have that ready for you, but they need it later in January, so I'll get it to you.
Okay.
later.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other further thoughts on the consent agenda? In that case, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And no one's opposing that, so we have approved that agenda. Thank you. And we're now up to all business, which is tree hearings and wood bank. Do we still have Cliff with us, by any chance?
Yep.
I'm here.
So Cliff, apparently there were some questions about the progress of the hearing, which I believe is still open as far as I know. Can you update us on the situation?
Yeah, I can. I don't feel like there's too much to report. Basically, the trees have been being cut. We have about 19 or 20 trees that still need to be reviewed by town. I don't know if it needs to be like a public hearing in the same way of needing to post it in the newspaper, giving 2 weeks notification. I'm fine with that if that needs to be the case. Ryan said that he's able to come back and take care of those trees depending on what we decide to take and not take. But that's pretty much all I know at this point.
I'm sorry,
I
I
can
didn't
report
really hear you
that,
very.
I'm sorry. Close the door here. Hi, baby.
Cliff, I wasn't really very clear on what you just said, but could you clarify, are trees
So
going to
basically,
the,
so the trees are being removed as we speak. Pull up arrows. And that basically, I don't know if we legally need to have another hearing, like an official hearing. I would like to have a hearing with the town. Ryan or Lance Wade is happy to be, participate in it, but I don't know where things are at right now. If we need to hold another official hearing or just kind of post it, find a date that works for everyone, and to have the hearing, or if we want to make it like an official hearing where, where I'm posting in the newspaper, posting it on the town hall, and all the other all the logistical steps to make sure that it's done in a good way.
well, are the trees going to the wood bank now?
I think most of the trees are just kind of sitting on the ground. The landowners, I'm giving them permission, like if the trees are on people's land, Eros, please stop. If the trees are on people's property, I'm giving them permission to take them at this point because I've kind of waited a bit too long. But there's still a lot of trees on town property and other places where, we will have ample amount of trees to do a good amount of tree bank work, along with other trees that will need to be taken down on other roads. But to my knowledge, nothing has been brought to the actual wood bank, the new site. Wait, please, Eros, we're almost done. So kind of everything. I've been away for the last couple of weeks, and I'm back as of today. So I'm gonna kind of take charge and see things through that I have not seen to completion, including really making sure that the wood bank site is clearly marked for Ryan or for National Grid to deliver the trees and put them in where they need to be so that we can have a functioning wood bank. I plan on doing that in the next couple of days.
So will National Grid come back and pick up the trees that have already been dropped?
Yes, I believe that's part of the agreement that I have with Ryan. He said they'll take care of those trees.
Okay. Will people who know if they're on their property know that they have a time limit in terms of when they can take those trees?
No, I mean, there's only been one person that's directly reached out to me asking if they can keep the trees, basically. So I don't really know what other people want. And I think that kind of the delegation of who's on what property and whatnot seems a little bit logistically out of my scope than I'm able to take on right now. So I'm not sure what to do. I think that I would like to utilize as many of the trees as we can for the wood bank. But if a person specifically reaching out to me saying, I'd like to use this wood, I'm going to give them permission to do so. If that doesn't feel fair to you, I'm willing to take that next step. I'm open to whatever. It's just, that's been the the easiest path right now, logistically for me.
Well, I think our main concern, Cliff, is that the trees start going to the wood bank site.
Yeah, mine too. I really would like that to happen. So I'm gonna reach out to Ryan tomorrow. Hopefully he'll be available and we can talk tomorrow. I'll probably message him tonight. We tend to message just via text for a lot of this stuff. I'll message him tonight after this meeting to kind of see if we can go over the site even maybe tomorrow and figure out any more logistical things he needs to know to make it work.
I did check the site, Cliff, and it's clearly marked.
Okay.
And after you've spoken to the utility company, could you please let Glenn know how you progressed?
Of course. Yes, I will.
Are
Thanks.
I was under the impression that at the first hearing, people were giving the impression that there was going to be a continuation of the first tree hearing. Is that where things were left?
I'm not, that's what I'm saying is I'm not quite sure logistically what needs to be done in terms, legally at this point. If like an official tree hearing needs to happen, I'm happy, I'm fine with that. It just puts us out another 2 weeks from whenever I can post it in the newspaper. And I don't really know how to post it in the newspaper. So
Yeah, I think what I would recommend is that, because this is going to come to the select board, it could potentially, what one thing Ryan said is that there are people in town in Wendell who are more familiar with the laws and the I's that need to get dotted and the T's that need to get crossed than we seem to be at this point. So I'm wondering if it might make sense, Cliff, for you and I to really partner closely on this and for me to help with the logistics and the posting and
I'd love that. That'd be great.
all of
Because
that.
the only other help I've been offered is from Mary Ann, and I don't feel comfortable receiving her support right now with much of anything. So this sounds great.
Yeah, and just to give a little bit more detail about where National Grid is, they're going to be finishing up with Wendell soon, moving on to Orange, but they have gotten approval that if we are ready with decisions about those 19 or 20 other trees, they would be willing to come back after Orange. But there still is kind of a window there. If they move on to some other town in some other part of the world, they may not be able to come back, which might be fine too. It might be those 19 or 20, if we take no action on them, that could be the end result. But if we can take advantage of the work that they're offering to do for us, obviously, that'd be great.
Go ahead.
So I would like to request that we try to get that, hearing scheduled as soon as possible so we can get it moving. And I hear Glenn saying that he'll offer support to you, Cliff, to help get that done. And that, is it possible for you to send us the list of those 19 to 20 trees?
Yeah, I can absolutely do that. And then I can also strive. I mean, Glenn, when's next day you're in the office?
Friday afternoon, I could be with you then.
Let's try to do that then. I'll do my best to make it out there.
Okay, I think it'd be, all right, I'll call you. I think it'd be good to get a time nailed down, and if we can, I know you've got a lot on your plate, so to the
You could
extent.
probably do it around 2 o'clock on Friday.
Okay, great.
Thank you both for pulling
Thank
it
you.
together.
Can we do the removal of maple trees?
Yeah, and while we have you, Cliff, we have another item on our agenda, one specific item, which is the maple tree at 38 Locks Village Road. What can you give us a status report on the discussion on that?
Yeah, basically I'm not quite sure what the logistical holdup was, but I had given permission for the tree in front of Mary Ann's house to be removed. It hasn't been. She's up in arms about that and threatening to sue me and stuff. But the other 2 or 3 trees that are kind of surrounding her property that she's wanting to be removed are the trees, some of the trees that are up for debate in terms of whether they're removed or not. They're not posing a risk to her house or her property. And they are still relatively alive. There's branches that are dying or limbs that are unsafe that can be pruned, but whether the trees themselves are fully removed or not, I feel like it's a decision for town because it's such a large space.
Okay, so
And I
for
can
right now,
share-
I have
can
the,
share what-
oh,
Sorry,
I
what was
just-
that?
I could just share what Ryan Kress said from National Grid, the reason why he hasn't cut that one particular tree that seems especially hazardous. He said it was because a concern was raised about it at the hearing. That therefore kind of puts a stop on it until there's a vote from the select board. So that's why this particular tree is on your agenda tonight, and there's a draft
Oh.
motion in your packet.
I can read the motion.
Why don't we address that right now?
I'll read the motion. I move to remove the maple tree at 38 Locks Village Road by the walk to the front door of Mary Ann Sundell's house due to dropping limbs which are a hazard to people and property.
And second the motion. Any further discussion on that tree? This we're prepared to vote. All those in favor? Pardon me?
Sorry, could
I saw
you,
your-
Marion Zendel?
I'll send you the name, or I'll have Glenn
Okay.
send you the name.
Thank you.
Any further thoughts on this item? In that case, we're prepared to vote. All those in favor of having this tree at 38 Locks Village Road removed, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So it carries unanimously.
Dan, I have one other comment, if you may. This is Phil.
Go ahead, Phil.
I had a conversation with the owner of the tree at the intersection of Lock Hill Road and Lock Village Road. And he was not opposed to having that tree removed. I know the highway crew is asking that it be tended to and removed. It's very close to being hit by the plows when they come around, and it does appear as if there's hollow spaces in it. I know there were townspeople that were opposed to it because it's an older tree, but I would appreciate if Cliff could at least focus on that tree, that the highway crew definitely would like that tree removed. It seems like it would be a safety issue to get that out of sight of line of sight of drivers on that curve there.
Cliff, can we put that on the agenda for the hearing?
It already is.
Okay,
Okay.
great, thanks. Well, I think we're pretty good on this. Glenn and Cliff are going to work together to continue the hearing. I believe the hearing's actually still open, just needs to be continued because it was never formally closed, but
Gotcha.
regardless, it meets the posting requirements. And Glenn and Cliff will take care of that, and we should be on our way to solving some of these questions.
Great, thanks. Thanks for joining us on Solstice Cliff.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cliff.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
I think we're to design of eldest citizen pin.
Yeah, what's that about, Glenn? I thought we had a design for the eldest citizen pin. No?
We did, but so we gave the pin, and now we need to have a pin at on call for the next eldest citizen. I tried to work with Cleary Jewelers in Greenfield to recreate the one that we have had because the jewelry shop that provided that previously was out of business. So she was not able to find a vendor who would kind of create that within a reasonable budget, I guess. So I had in your packet a new design, which essentially could be done in gold plate or silver. And it has a representation of the actual cane, and then it says Wendell, eldest citizen. So just wanted to check in with you all, how attached you were to having it look more like a three-dimensional cane versus a kind of a pin with a picture of a cane on it.
It looks good to me, Glenn. Thank you. I like the picture of the cane.
I like it
Mhm.
too. I think it actually would be more visible than that little
Yeah.
tiny cane.
I tried to take a picture of the cane on with her and it didn't show up well at all. So I think you might be right about that. The other
Yeah.
question I have is we've talked about the oldest citizen, but on the cane it actually says eldest citizen. So do you all have a preference whether it's eldest or oldest on the pin? I kind of like eldest, but
Yeah, I like eldest also.
I like eldest, and I actually like it in silver. Do you have an opinion?
I think silver's good.
Our
Okay.
silver citizens.
so I think it's something like $95 for the first one, but that includes a setup fee. And then they'll have it kind of ready for us and we can order more of them. I can get you the prices, but that's kind of what it costs to make a nice pin.
Is it possible to order like 3? And then
Yeah.
we just have them on hand and
Yep,
can order more as needed?
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
That sounds like a good idea.
okay. Thank you for your input on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for looking for an alternative.
Yep. And then on to 40 Gate Lane.
Yeah,
So Carolyn shared with me a packet from our insurer about 40 Gate Lane and the kind of reminder of the annual insurance we're paying on that property. I had to actually go, Phil was kind enough to take me out to look at it because I had some items I had to fill out on the form about the property. And I guess there's 2 questions that I have for you all. The first one is, in the short term, it's not actually properly boarded up. There's actually an open window, so someone could potentially relative ease get into that property. I'm wondering if we might want to take action to fully board up that building.
yes, we do. And this is not a huge expense. And we've had Tom Chasen on board to do a lot of boarding up of Wendell buildings for us. So I
Oh,
would
okay.
suggest, Glenn, that you just contact Tom,
Yeah,
ask him to do that.
sure, will do.
Thanks.
Okay. And then Carolyn was wondering if it might be possible for the fire department to do a controlled burn there in order just to kind of eliminate the liability and the insurance and all for that property. But Joe says that's not possible because of how narrow the street is and getting vehicles in and out and all of that. So then the question is whether you all want to do something around demolishing it, and or the other thing that Dan kind of mentioned earlier, what's Dan Leahy from the Open Space Committee was wondering if it might be possible to try to get that property to a place where it could have a parking area and a turnaround for hikers to enjoy. And then he also mentioned the idea of possibly working with an Audubon or a Mass Conservation division about kind of doing a trade where we gave them the land and the property and they did the demolishing and took it over kind of thing. So that's my question for you, is kind of like what plans are long-term for that property.
I actually was speaking with the person from Audubon who was looking for more information about Gate Lane. And after that conversation, I was thinking about that property in terms of, because it borders the property the Audubon is purchasing. And I was wondering if we should have a conversation with Audubon about some options. That sounds like something we could follow up on.
Yeah, I think it would be great if you could maybe do that, Glenn, if you have the time, is to reach out to Audubon and maybe also to Mount Grace,
Mhm.
which is another conservation organization which has worked a lot in Wendell.
And
And
with
see if they
that,
might be interested in something like that.
I think Dan was interested in DCR because he felt that their payment in lieu of taxes was kind of the highest going. So that could be an option as well.
Sure.
I'd add that Audubon did just pay a contractor to take down the building, one of the buildings off Jennison Road. They bought the land and there was a mobile home on it, and they just paid to have that demolished, and removed. So that's something
Yeah.
that they do.
Yep.
And the,
Oops.
oh, go ahead, Carolyn, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to figure out how to raise my hand. Anyway, I just want to remind Glenn and the select board that insurance, that application needs to be signed and back to them before 12/31, or that insurance could lapse. And if it lapses, there's no guarantee that they'll reinstate.
Thanks. It's all signed and ready, so I will scan and email that on Friday and send it by hard copy as well. Maybe I'll do it,
Perfect.
like overnight or something.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.
I'd like to add, when Glenn and I looked at that building, I think it's a particularly unsafe structure to leave sitting there unless it's really boarded up well. It's 2.5 stories high, multiple rooms in it. And if people that were looking to move in on an empty structure, that's a prime candidate for folks to try and, find some shelter.
Yeah.
Let's not advertise that.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about it in an open meeting that's being recorded to YouTube. Anything else
Okay,
on
is that it
Glenn?
for 40 Gate Lane? And have we covered the wage updates
Yep.
sufficiently?
And I just want to point out, Dan, that I stayed through the entire meeting, even though you had this agenda item earlier.
It's always a pleasure, Phil.
Well, it always is. I had a good time. So
Yeah, you're always welcome.
thanks.
Thank you, Phil.
You too.
And I appreciate, I talked to Phil, he's gonna put a little blurb in our newsletter about winter roads,
Good.
plowing, etc.
Yeah,
Appreciate
but-
that too.
Yeah, good. There's a lot of issues there to get out in the public. So hopefully people have a better understanding of why they don't get plowed as quickly as the main roads, I guess. And
Good.
Dan, you are like you won the prize, I think, this storm. Your road was probably plowed the last. So I don't mean to make
You'll be
light of it
prized.
for people. It wasn't intentional.
I understand. They did make it finally, and we're all set. Thank you.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Glenn, I think maybe you had something that was unanticipated.
Oh,
Yes, we have an application to rent the town hall on Saturday afternoons in January for a dance group. And they'd like to use the sound system if possible.
I was questioning what sound system.
I know, I was too. And then I looked on our application form and it mentioned, oh, if you want to use the sound system, make sure to get approval from the select board. So I thought maybe there was something over there I wasn't aware of. So we don't have one. Every time we've had one, we borrowed it from someone who's brought it, right?
Yeah, it's been Al McIntyre, who has a very nice sound system that he's very good at setting up in the town hall.
The Wendell Full Moon Coffee House may have one as well, but that's not the town's equipment. That's
Yeah,
Klondike
I'll let
or-
them know. We
I
don't.
don't know.
have
Klondike or
that
Robbie or
honor.
somebody. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I can edit our application form, not to mention the sound system that we don't have.
Well, I'm questioning, is it that if you're using a sound system to let us know, so we're aware of the sound
Oh.
issue? Is that
Maybe
what it
that's-
is?
Maybe that's what it is.
well, that would be good to know.
Yeah, they would like to use a sound system. I don't think it'd be too loud. They're not doing a a giant rock concert. It's just for the people dancing in the hall. So
The other question I had is whether 2 o'clock is too early for Good Neighbors.
too early for Good Neighbors. Do they do delivery on Saturday before the Sunday?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was Sunday.
No, it's Saturday. I hope.
I apologize.
The application said, I thought it said Sunday too.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
Sundays, a series of 4 Sundays in January.
You know, when we were talking on the phone, I thought we were talking about Saturdays, so I actually didn't, I guess I didn't look closely enough at the application. I'll have to be in touch with them. It was pretty clear that Sundays weren't really an option. We just pretty much don't let people use it on Sunday.
So maybe that is a typo, or not a typo, just an error, because the dates are Saturdays.
Oh,
Yeah, if you guys could vote on for Saturday afternoons, and I can get with them and clarify. If it's Sundays,
Yeah.
say no. If it's Saturdays, say yes. If you
I
approve.
think we're okay approving that for Saturday, right, Gillian?
Yeah, I would just let Good Neighbors know.
Okay,
Yeah, even if it's Saturday, they should know about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, so I would make a motion to approve the application for Saturdays for a series of 4 dance classes.
Second. Any further discussion? In that case, we can vote on it.
Aye.
Aye.
thank you. I don't have
am
anything else.
Connected to the program, but I think
Right.
that in this particular case, since we're such a small town, there's no real conflict issue. I
Right, yeah, I don't think so either.
Good.
They're not asking for anything special. Yeah, so I see on the application, it says sound equipment, yes, maybe no. So I think it's more, we could clarify that, but I think it's, will you be using sound
Got
equipment?
it. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're okay with sound being used as long as it's not, loud enough to disturb the neighbors or something.
Yeah, and it's in the afternoon, it's not at
Yeah,
7 o'clock at night.
okay.
Hey,
I don't have
anything
anything
further?
else. Nope.
You good, Glenn?
Good.
Good. Me too.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that one. All in favor of adjourning at 8:23, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all for coming.